Hello, in today's video we will be discussing the security and login procedures for the Steltronic Focus software. First of all, to log into the system, you can click on this little key and it brings up a login prompt. So we can select our user, we can type in a password if we had one, and we can log in. You can select from various users that you have in the system. The owner user is the administrator. So if we log in as the administrator user, and normally you would have a password, now we can do anything within the entire system because we're signed in as the owner. As the owner, we can then click on the home button and user accounts, and we can bring up the security manager. So as the owner or any other administrator user, you would be able to log in as the security manager, and now we can add new users, we can add new roles, and we can manage what authorizations are assigned to the various users and roles. So let me talk about the roles for a second. In the roles, we can set up roles or groups of users that are typically used by a bowling center. These are some samples that we have set up in there. So we can have a role as an administrator. We can have a role of the front desk, cashiers, a role for managers, a role for your mechanics, and a role for your snack bar. And these different roles will have different abilities that those users that are assigned this role can perform. For example, a front desk employee or user, if we click on properties, we can then go to the role authorizations. You would also be able to see which users are in this role currently, and you can assign the different roles for authorizations for this role. Currently, this one doesn't have anything assigned to it. So we would go through and click on the various authorizations to allow this role or group of users to be able to perform those functions. For example, booking, allowing that user role to be able to set reservations and work with bookings and reservations. And so we can assign various authorizations to the roles. If we go back to the users, now we can create a new user. So here I can click on a user, click on new, and add a new user to the system. So I'm going to add John Smith. It automatically creates a username when you type in the name. You can type in a password if you desire to have one. You can set a gratuity ID, which a gratuity ID is used for example, like in a bar or snack bar environment, you can assign a gratuity ID to certain users, and now the gratuity ID will be assigned to that user. You could also share the same ID. For example, if all of the bartenders are splitting tips, you can assign gratuity ID number 1 to the bartenders, and now all the tips will be assigned to gratuity ID 1, and you can split those tips. You can set an inactivity timer. So here we can set a timeout or timer as to how many minutes of inactivity will a employee be logged out after so many minutes. So right now I set it to 5 minutes. This user, if he walks away or stops using the system for 5 minutes, will automatically be logged off. You can set no timeout if you didn't want a timeout, and you can set the users to log off after each and every transaction. At the bottom, we can assign them to a role. So if I clicked on front desk, now this user will be assigned to the front desk role. If we click on the user's authorizations, you would be able to add additional authorizations to this user. So currently, this user, because he's part of the front desk role, these that are highlighted by the bold and underline are authorizations that this user received from being a member of the front desk role. You can add additional authorizations to an individual user by clicking the checkbox next to that authorization. This would give this authorization just to this specific user. At the top, we have some tabs. You can assign this user a card if you have magnetic cards for cashiers. You can set a fingerprint. So if I have a fingerprint reader connected to this workstation, I can set when is this valid from and to, and I can set a date way off into the future or whenever you wanted it to expire. You can set that this fingerprint will be enabled, and then you can start programming the finger. So here I can take and start placing my finger on the fingerprint reader, and the fingerprint is going to be assigned. Once you get to a certain level, this little green bar slides across the bottom and it says OK, save or place finger to improve. Once you have it set, you can hit OK, and now John Smith is in the system. We can click on this user and you can delete or go to properties and actually edit this user. If you needed to clear the password because the user forgot what their actual password was, an administrator can come in here and clear the password, and then they would be able to set a new password because the password is blank. You can also set a barcode if you had some other way of signing in. And you can set a hierarchical security, which we'll go over that in a few minutes. So this user is now set up, and anytime you're done with a user, you can click on the Save and Close button, and now that user will be in the system. If we go back to the screen, click on the key, and we see we have John Smith on the list. So you can click on John Smith, you can type in the password, and you can log in. You can also click on disconnect to log off of this off of the system. And once you're signed in as a user, if we hit login, now we're logged in as John Smith. If we click on disconnect, it'll disconnect us, and we can also click on change password, and it prompts us to enter in the old password and then the new password twice. If you just cleared out the password because the user forgot their password, then they can go in and change password and just leave the old password blank and type in whatever they want to use as their new password. So that's how you can change users. If we place our finger on the fingerprint, I can log in, set my finger on there, and it changes the name instantly. If I place another finger, now John Smith is logged in. So it's very quick and easy to change users. When you place your finger on the fingerprint reader, or if you swipe a card, it's going to automatically log off whoever was logged in and log in the current user that's trying to log in, Dave Vasquez. So if we click on the home button, we can go back to the user accounts, and we can go over this other button that we have here, which is called the user's hierarchy. This allows a center to create a hierarchy of users. Let me sign out of here and sign in as a service user, which gives us a higher level of authority. Um, if I go back to the user accounts and users hierarchy, now it shows us the owner user. It shows us a user named Ryan. It shows us a cashier and a front desk cashier called John Smith. And so here we can set the hierarchy of the system. And so currently the owner is set to level 253. Normally in a standard center, you want the owner to be the main administrator, and then you can set additional layers under that. So if I click on Dave Vasquez and make him, he's the general manager, I can set him to level 251. Okay. Ryan is another manager and he's set to 250. But if we look on the left-hand side, we have a hierarchy of the users, and the owner is the main um, user in the system, the main administrator. Beneath him, he's got his general manager, Dave, and beneath Dave, we have maybe an assistant manager or a supervisor that also has access to the security. And so we can set up some levels here of security. What this allows us to do is then set what can these users do. So if we check the box in front of Dave, we can click on Set Hierarchical Security Policies, and we can say what areas can he access and what do we need him to be able to do. So users management, we can create, Dave can create new users, and you can say allow, check the user's hierarchical level, and deny. What the check users level means is that this is going to revert or um, check their level based off of that number that we set. And so based off the number of 251, Dave would be able to set security for all of the users beneath Dave, but he would not be able to change his user or any users above him. The owner would be the only user that would be able to manage all of those users. And so this prevents Dave from resetting the password for the owner or changing something that he shouldn't be changing. Same thing for Ryan. Ryan is set to 250, so Ryan would only be able to manage those users below him. So he would be able to add new users and create new roles or manage the roles depending on what he's allowed to do. In this case, it's set to allow. So we would want this set to check users hierarchical level, and it would check and make sure that he's allowed to change those users that he's working with based on that level. And you can set various different things, user properties, users authorizations, users role management, role management, and what can the role, can they set the different authorizations for each role. And so in this case, we're going to say yes, he can, but check his level. And so This allows you to set a very robust security system in place so that employees can only do what they're allowed to do, and they can't change or modify users that they shouldn't be modifying, such as the owner and other administrators above them. So if we hit save and close, now those settings will take effect. Anytime that you add a new user to the system, we also have to take a further step if that user is going to be accessing the cache drawers. So we need to go to the configuration manager, then we need to go to devices, and then to the cache drawer tab. So for each workstation, depending on the workstations that that employee needs to work on, you would go to that workstation, and we go to the right over to where it says working drawers, and we can check the box next to their name. So John Smith needs to have access to this working drawer on the front desk PC, and we can save that. John Smith may not need to access PC2, which is where the snack bar operates, or PC3, where the bar operates out of. And so we can limit which cache drawers John Smith can access. The same thing goes for bar employees. They may only need to access the cache drawer for the bar PC. And so you can click on that PC, make sure that the cache drawer is set to the correct one, which it should be, and then you can assign which employees need to have access, as well as the owner and management. And now we click OK, and those employees that need to have access to that cache drawer have access to the cache drawer. And we can close. In some cases, you have to close out of the entire program. In some cases, you don't. Depends on what version of the software you're on. You may have to close out of the software and then reopen it on that workstation in order for them to be able to open the cache drawer. And then you would be able to click on the open cache drawer and test it under that user. So you would want to log in as John Smith, and then make sure that that employee can open the cache drawer, make sure that they can do everything else that they need to, and test things out. Otherwise, you would have to go back to the user accounts, which I'm not signed in as an administrator, so I'm not authorized to open that up. So I can sign in as a user that has access, and now Dave has access, and he can come in here and modify and make any changes as necessary. So our system has a lot of security in place to make sure that employees can do the functions that they need to without being able to do other things that only management and the owners should have access to. Um, That about sums up all of the security. If you have any questions or you need assistance in setting up something in your security, please give us a call and we'd be glad to assist you however we can. Thank you and have a great day.